Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 87 of Crunch Time. I'm going to be your host of today's episode. I am Tanner Dislin. I am joined, as always, by my duo, Sam Gotzi, and we are the N326 duo. Super excited to bring you today's episode. We have just finished the best weekend in sports. Unfortunate to say, but don't be sad because it's over. Be happy that it happened, and we certainly are. It was an absolutely fantastic weekend, non-stop basketball. Sam, how are we feeling after the first weekend of the
Dude,
NCAA tournament?
exhausted
Yeah.
watching 2 days worth of 14 hours of basketball, but wouldn't want to have it any other way. It was absolutely electric. Live upsets, live close games, live blowouts. But like everyone says, it's March and comes with it madness, man.
Yeah, this isn't for the weak. This is not for the weak. Just the commitment, the drive. I mean, it's as you said, Sam. It's exhausting. I tell you what, that wake up on Monday morning,
Yeah,
something
that was brutal.
something we had talked about. The games were in Des Moines this year. Sam and I were going. We both took off on Thursday and Friday. Had a little bit of a long weekend, only to be rudely awakened on Monday morning again. It was absolutely terrible. But without further ado, let's just hop right into the bracket, kind of how things shook out. But really quick, before we do that, I am going to give an update on the bracket standings. If you remember last week, me, Sam, and Eric went over our brackets. We put them in a pool so we could keep track of how we're doing against each other. In first is actually Eric. He is leading the pack right now. He has 44 points. He has 33 picks correct out of, I believe, it is 42.
Yeah.
So he has 33 of 42 correct. Pretty damn good with an 85 maximum. I am in second. I have 40 points and I have 31 of 42 correct with an 86 maximum. And Sam is in tied for second place with me with 40 points. He has 32 correct with a 75 max. So kind of tight in the current score and the amount correct. Um, Sam Law may have lost his champion earlier this
Yeah,
week,
that's tough.
so his max is a little bit lower. But you know, it's March, as we've said. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. We'll start in the South region, and I mean, is there any other word to describe this region than just mayhem,
Yeah, chaos is another
chaos,
good word.
mayhem?
Yeah.
I mean, talk me through this right now. I mean, what's going on here?
This bracket is this side of the bracket is just wild. We kind of mentioned last episode that Furman was a team we were all kind of looking out for, especially against Virginia and their history in March, not having a very prolific offense, which is hard to do in this day and age. Charleston, another good one, uh, battled San Diego State, got cut it to a close game, but ended up dropping that one. But Furman, let's talk about them for a minute. Upset Virginia on perhaps one of the worst final plays I have ever seen. Tanner, you and I were watching in Des Moines the Howard versus Kansas game, and they had a live look in, and Furman with the game winner, and the crowd went nuts like it was right in front of you.
I tell you what, Sam, that is a game that I will, or excuse me, a moment that I will never forget. As he had said, we were in the middle of or I guess towards the end of the
Yeah,
Kansas Howard game.
not a whole lot of people
Howard,
were paying attention.
to be fair to Howard, they kept it close for
This
longer
is
than
true.
most people imagined. I think it might have been a single digit game at halftime, if not
Yeah.
close to. Um, and then I think even in the beginning parts of the second half, put on a little fight. But
Yeah.
of course, Kansas ended up pulling away. So the crowd was a lot of people on their phones paying attention to the other games. And of course, we had this Furman Virginia game that was close down the stretch. And as you said, the the Virginia pass. I think what frustrated me the most, it's like, okay, if you're in trouble, you throw it down the other end of the court. It may be a turnover, but you come back, you play defense. Time's running, like it's not a
Yeah.
dead ball turnover, so the time will keep running. Or if they don't touch it, it just goes out of bounds. You can set up your defense, right? So like,
Yeah.
if you're in a bad spot, that is not the worst thing to do. But after the ball went in, Virginia called a timeout.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, you had a timeout this whole time.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah.
Use it. I don't get I just don't get it. It is a really bad blunder to end Virginia's season, is just throwing a jump ball down the court instead of calling your last timeout, getting a out of bounds play, and guess what? You get that ball in, you're getting fouled,
Yeah.
then you have a chance to extend your lead. So, big blunder out of Virginia, but my God, was it so fun to watch when that whole sequence went down. The crowd started buzzing. Everyone was watching on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. But guess what, Sam? That is only one of two
Yeah.
upsets that happened in this region on this day. Talk me through the other one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, another one that came down to wire. Princeton, 15th seed, upsetting Arizona again. Another team that hasn't had the greatest success in March. Princeton just played it better. That's simply put. Princeton, except I say Princeton played well, but they did not shoot well. Like they shot sub 40% as a team. Not the best shooting performance, especially when you're a severe underdog. Not a lot of people were giving Princeton a chance. Shot 26 for 64 from the field, 4 for 25 from the three. So not winning numbers, but in the end, they got done against a team a lot of people were picking to come out of this region, and they got upset first round, destroying a lot of brackets.
It's just so funny that Virginia and Arizona are the two teams to be upset in this bracket. As you said, two teams that a lot of people, Virginia more so than Arizona this specific year, but programs that people tend to not be high on in
Yeah.
March. And I could not agree with you more. I mean, when you're a 15 seed and you take down a 2 seed, typically you shoot better than 40% from the field.
Yeah.
Typically you shoot better than 16% from three, but that's not the case here. Princeton just played lockdown defense on Arizona. I mean, this Arizona team, a physical basketball team, two great bigs. On Arizona, and they shot 7 free throws. They were out rebounded by Princeton and shot 7 free throws. That is a recipe to beat a lot of people and a lot of teams. And then if Princeton shoots the ball a little better than this, they might be able to do some damage. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But yeah, this was the other major upset in this region. But other than that, is there anything else in that first round you want to talk about here in the South? Everything else seemed to be pretty standard.
Yeah, nothing too shocking. We had a great one in Maryland, West Virginia.
Yeah, that game was awesome.
8-9s tend to be the game everybody wants to watch. Always pretty close, unless you're a certain university, which we support.
Bums.
But yeah, this game was awesome. 67-65 Maryland inching out a win. Didn't really matter in the end, but that's another one I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, it was a really fun game too. Another one, because this was also finishing up right in the Howard, Kansas game. We were on our phones for a lot of it, but we'll move on we'll go to the second round in this South region. The games we had were, I mean, they were great. They were just as good as the first round. Couple that I wanted to highlight, a couple teams or one team in particular, to me, that's looking very, very dangerous. That's Creighton, man.
Yeah,
this team is looking very good. They had a first round matchup against NC State, a game it felt like they were in control most of the game. Then they come into the second round. They play Baylor, won the national championship 2 years ago. a really good basketball team. Kind of came on in the late in the season in that Big 12. Had a couple unfortunate losses to Iowa State in back-to-back games,
Yeah.
at the end of the regular season and in the Big 12 tournament. But a team that usually has very good guard play and is very difficult out in March. But I mean, Creighton just dominated this game.
Yeah. No doubt. You were mentioning Baylor. I actually had in some of my brackets them going to the Final Four. I thought they had great guard play led by Keontae George. But yeah, Creighton, while I say Baylor was going to Final Four, I had Creighton upsetting Baylor in some of them as well. Creighton's looking really good. Last week, we kind of talked about how they had a very good start, dropped one to Arkansas, and then kind of fell apart for a little bit there. But they are looking as good as ever. They have a interesting matchup next round with Princeton, who
Yes.
is a team no one expected to be here, let's be honest. But yeah, Creighton is playing as good as anyone right now, and they're setting themselves up for a lot of success as we've seen so far in this tourney.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I also thought that. Well, we know Baylor has good guard play. That's something we mentioned before. But you want to talk about good guard play? I mean, we mentioned how Creighton dominated this game in large part because it seems like their guards kind of took over and was the better backcourt in this game. I mean,
Yeah.
Ryan Nemhard putting in 30 of his own, Trey Alexander with 17. I mean, this is a team that can score on many different levels. Arthur Kaluma didn't even have his best game, putting in 11 of his own, and then the big guy inside with, I believe it's pronounced Kalkbrenner. Kind of
Yeah.
a tough one to pronounce there, but yeah, they got a lot of guys. They're going to be a very, very tough out. Now I want to revisit that other team you mentioned, who they are playing in the Sweet 16, because, well, Princeton took on Missouri in the Battle of the Tigers. Now, here's silly me thinking that, wow, I'm lucky I picked Missouri over Arizona because that's sure looking good right now. But the Princeton Tigers took over, and I mean, we want to talk about domination, how Creighton dominated that game against Baylor. If that's the case, then Princeton dominated
Yeah.
this game against Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, talking with Eric last week, he highlighted Kobe Brown of the Missouri Tigers, and if you shut him down, you shut down Missouri. Princeton did that. Kobe Brown only had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 5 for 13 from the field, 2 for 5. Now, those might not sound terrible, but when you're kind of the go-to guy for that team, they made other guys shoot the ball. Honor went 2 for 6. Hodge went 1 for 6. East the second went 3 for 10. Just forced the ball out of Kobe Brown's hands. And honestly, I think this is why Princeton just dominated.
Yeah, when you stop the other team's best player, that is a good recipe for success. Some of the things we highlighted in that Princeton Arizona game about kind of the recipe of what makes an upset. Talked about them shooting a little better. While from the floor, it wasn't all that much better. It was 43% as compared to 40, but going from 16 to 36% from deep
Yeah.
helped a lot. You and I were joking. We were sitting here watching the games. Of course, we had multiple screens going because we are experts at that at this point. But we had the multiple screens going, and every time we looked up, Princeton was shooting an open three.
Yeah.
The ball movement was there, the looks were there, and they were actually making them. Another thing I wanted to point out, what I talk about Arizona? Those bigs being able to rebound and not foul a team that is bigger than them. Princeton now rebounded Missouri 44 to 30, just dominated the boards.
Yeah.
Oh, and Missouri shot 7 free throws again, just
Yeah.
like Arizona did. So this is a team that can play defense. They can stop your best player. They will out rebound you. Doesn't matter if you're bigger than them. Doesn't matter if you're faster than them. They will out rebound you. They can shoot. And you saw improvement in the shooting numbers, and they don't foul. So this is a team. They kind of got a tough matchup against Creighton that we just talked about how good Creighton's been looking in Creighton with Kalkbrenner in the middle. He is a big man, someone who can
Yeah.
rebound and score the basketball in the paint. So they will have their work cut out for them, but this is something they've excelled at thus far.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, just absolute mayhem in this region. Princeton is in the Sweet 16. We had Furman taking down Virginia, and I mean, an early candidate for game of the year in the tournament. But we're going to move on to the East region.
Yeah.
Did anything happen in this region, Sam? Fill me in. I don't know if there were any upsets in this region. I'm not sure.
Just a tiny one of FDU over Purdue. Yes, sir. Absolutely crazy game. Now, obviously, we've kind of talked about this FDU team, Farley Dickinson. Kind of wasn't an auto bid because they didn't win their conference per se. Obviously, with Merrimack, we talked about that already. Going and beating Texas Southern in the play-in. We were watching that. The story around FDU was they're the Shores team. If they win this, they're going to struggle against Edie. And I told you, Grant, our buddy that was here this weekend, and Keegan, that FDU's beating this Purdue team. I like they're going to press the entire game, and that's been the story with these inexperienced guards of Purdue. And boy, did they run it to perfection. Shut down Edie. Was basically a non-factor that first half. Edie started getting going that second half, but it was kind of too little too late. All game, it seemed like FDU was just dominant on the defensive end. Just a lot of heart over height in this one.
Hand up. This man right next to me after that game said he liked FDU. It was crazy. And, well, he nailed it. Like you said, everything that we had said, that for some reason, I don't know if the conference just isn't athletic enough or what is going on, but Big Ten teams would wait till they're down 12 with 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
They'd press Purdue, they'd get a few turnovers, but it wouldn't be enough, and Purdue would end up winning the free throw battle down the stretch and winning the basketball game. Well, when you are a team whose average height is 6'3".
Yeah.
6'3". Zach Edey is 7'4".
Yeah.
That is 13 inches taller than the average person for FDU. They were incredible on defense. I don't know what Zach Edey was expecting, but I mean, he didn't get double teamed. He got triple. He got quadruple teamed, and Purdue just didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
they really didn't know what to do. And I think the most telling part of the entire thing, Sam, down the stretch, the entire game, down the stretch, Fairleigh Dickinson was in full swarm to the basketball mode. That's what they did all game long. Just swarm. No organization, just absolute chaos. They would do that to Zach Edey, sometimes even quadruple teaming him. He'd turn, he'd get it out to his shooters, and what would they do? Hold it.
Yeah.
They'd hold it. They'd look around, and they'd pass it. Nobody wanted to shoot the ball on Purdue. Nobody wanted to be the guy to miss that shot.
Yeah, and I want to shout out a big player in this game, Sean Moore. He was the center, if you want to call him that, more of a small forward or shooting guard on any other team. Exposed Edey. They played a 5 wide out offense the entire game, and he cooked Edey. 19 points, 5 rebounds. Had a little foul trouble, but no shocker there. But let's look at this box score. FDU, usually when you see this team nobody's really heard about, you have this dude that just goes crazy. He was their leading scorer with 19 points. Their other stars had 12 points, 8 points, 7 points, and 1 point. And 16 points off the bench. That was it.
Yeah, that was my next point. Now let's flip it to the other side. How many points did Purdue get from its bench?
5.
Wow. 5 points.
We love that.
We tried to say that this team is not all that good, and we were kind of validated in that, which felt good. But now, of course, after we look at the actual basketball, how they're able to do it, swarm, make literally anybody but Zach Edey beat you.
Yeah.
Turns out they can't. The lights were too bright. This was a young Purdue team. Their guards are freshmen. Their guards weren't particularly great shooters
Yeah.
throughout the year, and they were guards that got rattled many times throughout the year like I said, when the lights got bright, when it was in crunch time, and they had to break an in-your-face press,
Yeah.
and they crumbled. And something that we had predicted, we had thought it would come a little bit later. Well, I say we, I thought it had come a little bit later. Not him. He knew.
Yeah.
But I mean, this begs the question, Sam. Of course, we have two instances of the 16 beating the 1.
Yeah.
There are obviously more 15s beating 2s, but
Yeah.
I gotta know: is this the greatest upset of all time
By far.
in college basketball
I think this
or
was
in sports? I mean, Miracle on Ice,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, it's up there with some of the greatest upsets. Obviously, I kind of already mentioned the fact that they didn't win their conference. They were playing UMBC. People were talking like, "Oh, this could actually be an upset you want to pick." Yeah, I mean, with UMBC, they played Virginia, who you just got to score more than 30 points and you win.
Right.
The Purdue was kind of the team to beat. A lot of people had them winning it all because who's going to stop Edie? Oh, yeah, 6'3" guy from FDU, baby. But yeah, I think this tops UMBC upset over Virginia by a lot.
I agree with that. No, obviously, everything we talked about, smallest team, 363 out of 363 in height versus numero uno, not just Zach Edey. This team was number 1
Yeah.
across the board in height, and the little guy won. Let's dive into this even further. They're the only team that had to play in, right?
Yeah.
They had to play in the first 4. They were, as you said, didn't even win their conference. Merrimack did. Their conference was also ranked last. The NEC was ranked last out of all the conferences in Division I by KenPom. This team, I believe they were ranked, I want to say it was 355 out of 363 in KenPom.
Yeah.
UMBC, what you mentioned before, a team that some people had as being underseeded when the field was announced. They were, I think they were around like 190 in KenPom when the field was announced. So, I mean, that team, we knew they could play. And it's just crazy. It is just absolutely crazy how a team that we talked about didn't deserve to be. We literally said that on this show.
Yeah.
That when we're talking about the first 4, that they don't deserve to be here. Justice for Merrimack.
Yeah.
And, well, I think they deserve to be here. What do you think?
Yeah.
So that was an absolute shocker. It certainly made our night, certainly Sam's. I mean, he literally called the damn thing. It was it was a pretty fun game to watch, but the rest of that first round kind of went as expected. That matchup, Duke Oral Roberts, something we had talked about, where Duke wins this game, they could go on a run. But this first game against Oral is going to be tough. Duke ended up at just handling business. Kind of took control right from the start. I don't know if the public chatter about the upset potential kind of had them a little bit sharper and on their game, but Duke absolutely handled business there. So I think we should hop in and talk about some of these round of 32 games. We'll start off with Royal Rumble in Duke versus Tennessee. My God, was this game physical?
Yeah, this game was incredible. I know last week I talked about Tennessee kind of being on the upset watch. They struggled with Louisiana. I was like, okay, I like my pick of Duke beating them. Boy, was I wrong. I thought their guard play was going to lack due to their injury, but Tennessee just out physicaled them in this one. I mean, this Nakam Oa, however you say his name, went crazy. 27 points. Muscovy again, 14 points. Did just a great overall team performance from Tennessee. And Filipowski struggled in probably the biggest game of his collegiate career, and boy, did he struggle.
Big time. I mean, this was bully ball. This was Tennessee saying, welcome. You got the 5-star recruits, you got the flash, you got the skill, you got all the pretty boy basketball. Come play us. See what we're about, right?
Yeah.
It was bully ball. Uros Plavsic, I think Plavsic
Yeah.
is his name. I mean, he got 2 offensive fouls within the first
Yeah.
minute of just putting his elbow and his shoulder right into
Mhm.
Filipowski's chest
Yeah.
and saying, let's go. Let's go. This is the type of physicality you're going to need to play with us. And Duke couldn't match it. They were flying all over the floor, kind of easily pushed around. I mean, this idea of Duke's a team that flops a lot. It was kind of
Yeah.
on full display here, right? Tennessee was just way, way more physical. They set the tone early, and Duke couldn't match. Tennessee absolutely controlled this game from tip to the end. Just never felt like Duke really had any chance of coming back just because the physicality and the player you mentioned before. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. I was calling him Hakuna Matata, but Nakamhua.
Yeah.
Just playing out of his mind, 27 points in only 22 minutes. So really, really efficient in that as well. But Tennessee looked great over Duke. Kind of a sad end for Duke, right? I mean, was the hottest team in college basketball. I said it many times. Picked them to win the ACC, which they did, and then they just got absolutely bullied by Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about before the tourney. They're the hottest team in college basketball, and they get bounced second round. So set a reminder, folks. Next year, when you're filling out the bracket, don't trust Duke, don't trust Purdue, and don't trust Arizona.
Trust Virginia?
No.
No, don't trust Virginia either. The manifesto is coming out. Do not trust any of these teams. Oh, and don't trust the Mountain West either, unless you're San Diego State. We
Yeah.
didn't mention them before. They are in the round of 32.
Yeah.
Kind of handling business over Charleston and Furman, but everyone else lost. None of them were really close.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on to the other kind of big game in this region. Or I guess there were 2. I guess I'm not giving enough love to Kansas State and Kentucky. This was a
Yeah.
great game, Sam.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of mentioned last week Kansas State is on that people are madly underrating them. Went through the gauntlet that is the Big 12. Came into this tournament as a 3 seed, took care of Kentucky. Obviously, Oscar Tshiebwe being the guy that he is, still got his 25 points, 18 boards, but they basically shut down everybody else. Didn't really have another go-to guy behind Tshiebwe. Wallace had 21, but let's talk about Marquise Noel of Kansas State, point guard, 5'8", Tanner. 5'8", going against Kentucky, who is known for their athleticism, just freak athletes all across the board. And he goes off for 27 points in 40 minutes. So he is doing it all for Kansas State. And he is a big part of why they moved on.
I tell you what, man, it's just one of those Marquise Noel take a bow. Take
Yeah.
a bow. He took over this game back and forth. I mean, it was just a fantastic game, close from beginning to end. And then when it came down to crunch time, Marquise Noel just took over, hitting big shot after big shot. We do also have to mention the biggest shot of the game was hit by Keontae Johnson,
Yeah.
who, if you remember, was on Florida a few years ago when he collapsed on the court, was put into a coma for a few days, was told he would never play again. But then, of course, through his will and determination, got back. It turns out he couldn't play for Florida. I think there was some liability issues with what happened. So he decided to transfer to Kansas State and put together a fantastic season for a team that was picked to finish last in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So absolutely incredible story. If your team is out, if your team didn't make it, and you're looking for a team to kind of hitch your wagon to, look no further than Kansas State, a team, like we said, kind of the underdog story is there. They were picked last in the Big 12. You got the comeback of Keontae Johnson. They're a really fun team to root for. And as Sam said, one that's been underrated all year long. So they got that chip on their shoulder. They have And they have a fantastic matchup against none other than Mr. March, Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans back in the Sweet 16 as a 7 seed. And they took out number 2 seeded Marquette, a team, won the Big Ten, looked dominant in doing so. I personally have them in my Final Four like an idiot, but Michigan State took out Marquette in the round of 32, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State just played a better game. I mean, it was back and forth for a little bit, and then Michigan State down the stretch just kind of took over. Questions surrounding Marquette, is Shaka Smart that guy? I think he's had like 5 first or second round exits in the last 5 or 6 March Madness appearances. So is a guy Marquette still rolls with? I think so. But yeah, just a great performance by Michigan State, and they're moving on.
Yeah, dude. Shaka Smart's just his whole story. Him leading VCU to a Final Four, and like, this is the next name in college basketball. Goes to Texas, has all the resources in the world, doesn't see much success. Leaves that program, is now at Marquette, put together a great year for the Golden Eagles. Get upset by Izzo. Yeah, it's kind of a story where since that peak, it has been all downhill for Shaka Smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, it's just you just needed more from Marquette, top to bottom. You look at their players, man. Their guards, the guards that have been so good for them and absolutely dominated MSG to go on to win that Big Ten,
Big East.
Big East conference tournament. Kolek only had 7 points. Stevie Mitchell was 6. Cameron Jones was 14. Those 3 guys combined for 27 points. It's hard to win games that way.
Yeah.
You go to the other side. Tyson Walker for Michigan State.
Yeah.
He was really good when they played Iowa this year. He couldn't miss. Had another great game, 23 for him. AJ Hoggard, I know he was dealing with some foul trouble in this game, but he put in 13 of his own and played big clutch minutes down the stretch. Guard play, guard play, guard play. We've said it about a million times thus far, and it is going to be a theme that we continue to talk about because that is exactly what is needed to win games in March, and Michigan State's was just flat out better in this game. So not much more to talk about so that kind of wraps up this East region. FDU, unfortunately, the run came to an end, although they put together one hell of a fight against FAU. FAU, the 9 seed in the Sweet 16 that America hates for taking out their sweethearts, their darlings, FDU. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but Kansas State, Michigan State, not much, can't get much better than that. But we'll head over to the Midwest region now. Sam, in this region, there were 3 Iowa teams.
Yeah.
In the round of 32, there were 0 Iowa teams. Just a miserable weekend for the state. They had 6 teams in the men's and women's bracket. Only 1 remain. Of course, we're going to start in a state of misery, as we always do. The Iowa-Auburn game. Auburn ends up taking down the Hawkeyes 83-75.
Yeah, typical Iowa fashion, couldn't stop a nosebleed. Just frustrating. Same thing we've seen all season. But props to Auburn, man. They shut down our one consistent offensive weapon in Chris Murray and made him play bully ball, and he got dominated. It's simple as that. Peyton Sanford, was our lead scorer, and he came off the bench. If that doesn't tell you how awful our offense was, I don't know what will. And let's be honest, Auburn did not play that great of a game. Their lead score was Broom with 19 points. If you see that, you're not like, oh my God, they went crazy. It was 31-26 at half, so close game there. And then Auburn just kind of took over and beat the Hawks like damn near everyone else has.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I agree. I think we do need to give Auburn credit here. I mean, they played a really well-rounded game. I think it was, not one where someone stood out as the key dominant player, but they had six guys in double figures.
Yeah.
That is a hard recipe to defeat. I mean, you mentioned 31-26 at half. We're in a close game, and then proceeds to give up 52 points in the second half.
Yeah.
Defense has always been an issue with this team. And then you look at Chris Murray, someone who, I mean, I've been pretty vocal down the stretch. Kind of seemed like he's gotten pushed around pretty easily. This was no different. Um, he just couldn't get going, couldn't make anything, couldn't finish in the lane, couldn't step out and make his threes. He only had 15 points. He was not very efficient in that 15 points. You mentioned Peyton Sanford. I mean, definitely got to give him some props. 21 points in 22 minutes. Pretty efficient work from Sanford. But again, as you said, came off the bench and happened to be our leading scorer. Philip Obracha always is a dog. He always gives it his hardest, his best, and plays his hardest. But just a lot of empty minutes for this Iowa team with not much contribution, and that's really tough. And one more time in the Fran McCaffrey era, the Hawkeyes fail to make a Sweet 16. They fail to win a game this year, and just kind of got put in the dirt by this Auburn team. I know it was an 8-point game. I don't At least to me, Sam, chime in if you think any different, but it didn't really feel that
No.
close like it was an 8-point game.
No, it
Auburn, I
didn't.
think, had like a 17-point lead with maybe 10 minutes to go in the game. So a little bit of a comeback for Iowa to at least make it semi-respectable. But yeah, just another just failed experience, failed game. Didn't look like they wanted to be there. And now we enter just yet another incredibly important offseason for Iowa basketball.
Yep. Simply put.
Oh man. All right. Yeah, we'll kind of put a bow on that and talk about the rest of the weekend in happy thoughts because yeah, that was not so happy. But everything else in this region, man, not a ton to talk about. Not many upsets. Pitt, Iowa State. How about Iowa State
Yeah.
setting the record for shooting in March? How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, Iowa State is known for their defense, a very explosive offensive team throughout the season. But boy, did they shoot like shit. 14 for 60, 23% from the field, 9.5 from three. There was a delay before the game. Supposedly the rim was janky wherever they were playing. I can't remember. And basically, they asked if Iowa State wanted a extended shoot around. They declined. Well, maybe they should have
All
taken
takes
it.
exposed.
Yeah, for real. And let's not. So the final score was 59-41. Pitt didn't play well.
No, they did not.
They shot 34% from the field. That is just 11 percentage points, but that made the world of difference. And Iowa State just got clobbered in this one.
41 points, and I mean, I think they made the layup to get 41 with like under a minute left. Like we were rooting so hard for them to stay under 40. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But an all-time bad offensive performance from Iowa State against Pitt. Tell you what, another team that really impressed on Thursday in that first round. How about the Penn State Nittany Lions, man?
Yeah.
A team we had talked about last week. They were red hot coming off of the Big Ten championship or the Big Ten tournament, excuse me, where they went on a pretty nice little run and did what every Big Ten team does, down big to Purdue. Of course, had to press, got turnovers, got back in the game, ended up losing by 2, and almost made a ferocious comeback. But showed that they could play a little bit. One of the more prolific three-point shooting teams in the country, number 1 in the Big Ten, and they just stomped on Texas A&M.
Yeah. I mean, last week I was talking about how Texas A&M, and not just me, the entire country was talking about how severely underrated A&M was. And boy, turns out the committee did right. surprisingly. Just an absolutely dominating performance by Penn State, exposing A&M for what they are in their bummy.
Big words coming out of Sam here. And then in the second round, I feel like not enough people are talking about just how entertaining the Penn State Texas game was.
Yeah. Penn State, Texas, another great matchup. Texas obviously pulled out a slight dub, 71-66, but Penn State put up a fight like they have all year. But sad to see the run kind of end. Dessou just dominated in this one. 28 points, 10 boards. Hard to beat that. When one of your leading scorers, Andrew Funk, I believe, is his first name, only had 12 points. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean this was Dessou's game. He was the closer for Texas in this game. Absolutely huge for Texas down the stretch. And you mentioned it, the importance of shooting up with this Penn State team. They were the most prolific shooting team in the Big Ten. And well, when Andrew Funk, who is arguably your best pure shooter, did not shoot the ball as well, only finished with 12. It is hard, it's hard to win that game, especially when you're facing the Big 12 champion, the number 2 seeded Texas Longhorns. So, but still, similar to FDU, like what a run from Penn State. Got a decisive win, hung around against a really good team in the round of 32, and I mean just a season to really be excited for. I mean, it's exciting to look back at if you're a Penn State basketball fan, which come few and far between. Anything else in the Midwest that you're looking at here that you think deserves some recognition?
Yeah, I mean, Indiana getting absolutely dog walked by Miami. Indiana was a team I was very high on. We talked about how we believe TJD is the best player in the Big Ten. Still got his that game, but Isaiah Wong going crazy that game. I believe he had 27 points, I want to say. But yeah, this one was a shocker to me. I wasn't very high on Miami. I actually had them losing, and honestly, they should have lost.
Man.
Drake was up by 8 with like 5 minutes left, I believe, and they blew it. So especially after seeing that, I was like, Indiana's gonna move on to Sweet 16 and play Houston. That didn't happen.
Yeah, guard play. Guard play. Isaiah Wong was the best player on the floor, or certainly the best guard on the floor, and that propelled Miami to a win. I guess we also should talk about Xavier, team that I think some people had on upset watch on Kennesaw State. Started a little slow in that game, ended up looking a lot better in the second half, and just handled business against Pitt. So Xavier is another team that a lot of people are looking over. They had a fantastic year in that Big East. They played against Marquette in that Big East title game. Marquette just kind of controlled from beginning to end, but Xavier can play.
Yeah.
Former Hawkeye Jack Nunge,
of course,
one of the better, most experienced big men in the country at the moment. The way he's able to defend the rim and score inside the paint, and even stretch out a little bit if he needs to. So look out for the Musketeers, man. That team is pretty good. That Xavier Texas game, again, one not many people are talking about, but Xavier can play. So that game will be really fun to watch. But we'll move on to the last region. And in this region, round 1, there were 0 upsets. None. 0. Zilch. Nada. Kansas, Arkansas, St. Mary's, UConn, TCU, Gonzaga, Northwestern, UCLA all won their matchups. But, of course, we were at games in this region, so we do kind of want to talk about this Arkansas-Illinois game.
Yeah.
Really fun to be a part of. So much fun to watch. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I mean, this game was wild. I still can't believe Arkansas somehow pulled this one out. I mean, Nick Smith Jr., who's projected I believe last time I checked, was the 6th overall pick, shot 2 for 10. Anthony Black 4 for 12. Ricky Council, another projected draft pick, 3 for 9. Jordan Walsh, 2 for 8. That's kind of their big four right there. And they played horrible. Shout out Devo Davis, so putting the team on his back in this one. Played his ass off, 16 points, 7 for 14 from the field, excuse me. I just can't believe this game ended the way it did. A lot of the refs had a tight whistle, to say the least. But yeah, Arkansas's moved on and is currently moving on, baby.
Yeah, the Must Bus is in full force, but we'll talk about that some more in a bit. But specifically this game, I mean, you mentioned how Arkansas struggled offensively. Uh, Illinois was worse. I mean, they shot 38.5% from the field. I guess Arkansas shot 38.1, so pretty similar there. They both shot 27% from three. It's the exact same percent, by the way. Arkansas 3 for 11, Illinois 6 for 22. So the same percent.
There you go.
But Arkansas having the advantage, making 5 more free throws than Illinois for a 76% clip. Really struggled to make free throws in the first half. Something we had talked about. If Arkansas made the free throws, they would have been up 15, 16 in the first half. And that half would have had a much different feel to it. But stepping up and making those down the stretch was huge. Just dominating the boards, too, is something. I mean, Illinois only had 3 offensive rebounds all game.
Yeah.
Important when playing Illinois. I mean, Dane Danger, Coleman Hawkins, these guys tend to rebound the ball very well. Arkansas just putting a complete end to that was really important. But all around, not great shooting, but the free throw shooting and just the talent on the floor, the athleticism on the floor for Arkansas really helped will them to victory here. But let's stay on the Must Bus, baby, because the next round, I think personally, the game of the tournament thus far was Arkansas versus Kansas. Oh my God, was this game fun?
Yeah, this game, I agree, Tanner. One of the best games, if not the best. I think FDU produced, obviously up there with the matchup, but just talent versus talent. This game was incredible. Now, Tanner, if I told you 3 Arkansas players would foul out in this game and 2 more would have 4 each, do you think they'd win this game?
No, Sam, I would not.
No, I don't think anyone would, but they did, because Muss is Mr. March, not Tom Izzo. Muss is Mr. March. Devo Davis, I already talked about him in the previous game, heightened his performance in this one. 25 points, 8 rebounds, 9 for 15 from the field. Kind of put that team on his back when it mattered most, and is a big reason why this team won. Once he came out with that 5th foul, Ricky Council just took over, and he just came down the stretch, hit the big shots when it needed to be hit, and that's why Arkansas is moving on.
Yeah, I mean, Devo Davis was everything that Arkansas needed him to be in this game. You mentioned 25 big points, but to me, stood out the player of the game was someone that you said who kind of took over after Devo had fouled out. I mean, played all 40 minutes.
Yeah.
21 points from Ricky Council. Just the absolute closer for Arkansas. This game was so much fun. You look at the team stats. I mean, Kansas shot better than Arkansas did.
Yeah.
48 to 41%. Kansas shot 39% from 3. Arkansas 20. There's just really no reason Kansas should have lost this game.
Exactly.
And even watching the game just from the eye test, now I acknowledge that both of us were rooting for Arkansas, but it seemed like the calls were leaning one way.
Yeah.
But just an absolutely incredible performance from Arkansas. Grit and grind, baby. Just so much fun to watch. Then, of course, capped off by maybe the moment of the tournament. Muss standing on the scores table, waving his shirt over his head after he had ripped it off in celebration, leading the calling of the Hogs with the Hog fans that were there. Of course, this was in Des Moines, so it was closer for people from Kansas to travel.
Yeah.
So it was a very Kansas-friendly crowd. However, the Arkansas faithful were very loud
Yeah.
after they had won the game. So, I mean, I'm loving this Mr. March debate. Izzo
Yeah.
versus Muss.
I
Which
mean,
one? The resumes speak for themselves. It's really hard to really hard to debate this at the moment. We'll have to see. Both are still alive, both
Yeah,
in the Sweet 16.
we'll see.
So that we will. Anything else you wanna say about your beloved Hogs to put a bow on this one?
Woo damn pig. That's
Woo
all I
damn
gotta say.
pig. That's what I like to hear, baby. Woo damn pig. Now we'll talk about their opponent in the Sweet 16, UConn, a team that a lot of people were high on, myself included. I have them going to the Final Four, but UConn kind of had a statement game against St. Mary's, a St. Mary's team another team that I was kind of high on.
Yeah.
A lot of people had them losing to VCU. I was pretty high on St. Mary's in that game and thought this would be a good test to see the legitimacy of UConn, a team that at some points this year really looked like the best team in the nation.
Yeah.
I think they got up to number 2 at one point, didn't quite get to number 1, but UConn may have had, I would say, the second most impressive half of the entire tournament thus far in this second half versus St. Mary's.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. You mentioned UConn kind of being one of the better teams, and then kind of took over that second half, outscored St. Mary's 39-25. Sonogo finishing the game with 24 points, 8 boards, kind of being this leader for the UConn Huskies. So, yeah, nothing too crazy here. Kind of, in my personal opinion, I actually had St. Mary's getting upset in the first round. So I thought UConn would take care of business, and boy, did they.
Yeah, and you know what 2 words I'm going to say? Guard play. Let's take a look at UConn's. I mean, Andre Jackson Jr., Tristan Newton, Jordan Hawkins, them 3 put together a great game. I mean, and then pair that with Sonogo, someone who, to a player comp with maybe a little bit more known, someone like an Oscar Tshiebwe who is strong.
Yeah.
He is unrelenting in the paint, very good post score, very good rebounder, very hard to move off his block. He's a matchup nightmare for teams, and he was able to do that against St. Mary's. And UConn may be one of the few teams that can match Arkansas's athleticism in the field. So
Yeah.
that is why I could not be more excited
Yeah.
for this Arkansas UConn game. But yeah, UConn over St. Mary's, kind of similar to Creighton, where after this game I'm sitting there like, whoa, like this team really came to play. But on the bottom of the bracket, we had another absolute banger of a game and an absolute miracle of a backdoor cover for all you sports gamblers out there. Gonzaga versus TCU.
Yeah, this one was a back and forth game throughout. Gonzaga kind of took over. Drew Timme reminded people of how good he is in this one when it mattered most.
Dropping a casual F-bomb in the
Gonzaga, of course, needed him most. He performed exceptionally. 28 points in just 31 minutes, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Just another great performance from a guy that I believe doesn't get talked about enough in Drew Timme.
Yeah, he took over the game. Plain and simple. I believe they were trailing at half. Yeah, they were trailing by 5 at half. So huge second half from Timme and the Bulldogs. But while the region was a little bit chalky, obviously, except for Arkansas over Kansas, we are set up for some absolutely delicious Sweet 16s matchups, not only in this region, but in the entire bracket. So that was kind of our recap of what had happened over the weekend. Just nonstop action, nonstop upsets, nonstop drama, nonstop absolute fantastic play across the board. So, I mean, just another notch in the ledger, another successful year, another reason why this is the best moment, not only in basketball, or the best weekend, excuse me, not only in basketball, but in sports.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, Sam, we kind of went through these matchups. I'm going to read them all right now. In the South, we have Alabama, South Dakota State, and
San
Creighton.
Diego State.
I do that every time. I am the worst. The SDSUs. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which one I'm saying. I will say the wrong one every time.
It happens.
Alabama, San Diego State, Creighton, Princeton. In the East, FAU, Tennessee, Kansas State, Michigan State. In the Midwest, Houston, Miami, Xavier, Texas. And in the West, Arkansas, UConn, Gonzaga, UCLA. Which ones you got your eyes on?
I mean, how can it not be this Arkansas UConn game? Obviously, being an Arkansas fan, I do have a little bias, but just looking at what these teams have been doing, Arkansas, a lot of hype going into the season. As I mentioned, a lot of potential draft picks. UConn, you said, being one of the best teams all year, potentially number one at one point in the season. Just that matchup is going to be absolutely incredible. I'm so excited for this one. Thursday night is going to be electric. I hate this draw for Arkansas, but as a fan of just college basketball in general, I love it. It's going to be that. If you're not a big college basketball fan and need a game to catch the essence of college basketball, Arkansas UConn is your game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I think we've seen how well Arkansas has traveled. Being in the Sweet 16 is not anything new since Muss has took over.
Yeah.
They've been here, a few times, never gotten over the hump. The UConn faithful is starved since the Kemba Walker, Shabazz Napier days. So they will certainly travel. This is certainly going to be probably the most electric atmosphere of any of the games.
Yeah,
definitely
100%.
in this game. Of course, we talked about Kansas State, Michigan State.
Another great one.
Another fantastic matchup. I'm going to draw attention to the Gonzaga UCLA game.
Yeah.
Sam, have these two teams ever matched up before in March Madness? Of course, the very famous Adam Morrison crying game.
Yeah.
That happened against UCLA. The Jalen Suggs buzzer beater off the backboard.
Yeah.
That came against UCLA as well. So these two teams have had their fair share of instances against each other, and this one should be
another Thursday night game.
Another Thursday
so
night
UConn,
game.
Arkansas, then followed by Gonzaga, UCLA. Jeez. Name something better, Tanner. I'll wait.
I cannot. I absolutely cannot. Absolutely fantastic. Licking my chops just thinking about it.
Oh, and we start out the night with Kansas State, Michigan State. Name a better 3-game slate.
What's the other game on that night?
FAU, Tennessee.
Okay,
so we finally
come back
get
to earth.
A little dip, but
come back to earth. I mean, those are the three main ones. I mean, another one I talked about Xavier, Texas. Xavier, a lot of people are sleeping on. The other game in that region, Houston, Miami. Again, the theme of the show: guard play, guard play, guard play. Miami has some of the best guards in the nation. Isaiah Wong playing probably the best, maybe one of the best individual games from a guard in this tournament. Then you have Houston, Marcus Sasser.
Yeah.
Anybody, probably maybe the best guard in the field. So just storylines on talent, on Cinderella. It is fantastic. Could not be more excited for the entirety of the field. But that's going to be, that's kind of a wrap up of what's happened so far. A little bit of a look forward to the future this weekend of which games to watch. Spoiler alert, all of them. But before we wrap up this episode, Sam, I want to have this conversation because we are another year in. We have our Sweet 16, another year of March Madness. We have some more data to go off of. I want to know, I feel like I want to know your opinions, and we should have this conversation about this term that's thrown around in college basketball very often. These are the best teams in college basketball, and we call them the Blue Bloods. Now, you have a few few gimmies and a lot that are kind of on the edge. Are they? Aren't they? I want to know yours, and we'll have this conversation. What constitutes a blue blood, and who in your mind is in fact a blue blood of college basketball?
Yeah. I think 10 years ago, this conversation would be totally different with the ever changing rules and regulations of college basketball. That is changing. And I think anyone who says different is an idiot. Let's put it
Mhm.
how it is. Golly, that's a tough question. I still think, uh,
So there should be four that are gimmies, right? That everyone has.
yeah. Who are they?
Duke, UNC, Kentucky, Kansas.
Yeah,
The four
I
that
agree.
it's going to take one hell of a lot to remove one of those teams from that mantle.
Yeah. I think see, Kentucky's a weird one because they were so dominant for so long, and they haven't been in a while.
Last tournament win was 2019.
Yeah, and I
Or,
think
except they won one game this year, but
yeah,
before
I
this.
know what you're saying. Um, golly, I mean Michigan State's up there for me with Izzo, Gonzaga. You can throw around. They don't play well. They played a lot of good teams, a lot of good talent, and they're still alive in this tournament. I think I have them up there. There's just golly, this is a tough question. But I think those are kind of the two I have up there. I don't know. I think they're just on the outside. I think those four you mentioned, and then Michigan State is like half foot in, half foot out kind of thing, and Gonzaga is next in line.
Right. You mentioned it's always changing. That's certainly true. And what's so hard about this is like what should carry the most weight? Is it talent / quality of team currently? Is it size of the program? Is it legacy of the program?
Yeah.
Is it accolades? Is it coaches? Like there are so many things that you could go by, and based on the different criteria, you're looking at different teams. So maybe I'll do this. I have some teams in mind. I'll throw them out, and we'll kind of debate them really quick before ending the show. So we have the four that we both agree. My next one was going to be Gonzaga. You said no, but kind of
1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of
I
thing.
think I would consider them a blue blood. I think they've been to 5 or 6 straight Sweet 16s now. They don't play in, they do play in the WCC, so not the hardest conference, but they're always there at the end. They're always usually top 25. So I think I would throw in Gonzaga. Another team I want to throw that we haven't talked about didn't make the tournament this year. Really down year from this team, Villanova.
Yeah.
Villanova. I think I would consider them a blue blood as well. Just, I mean, what, two titles in the last 5 years or something? So
with a down year, that's a team I kind of forgot about, to be honest with you, Tanner. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think they are a blue blood. Yeah, I agree with that.
Michigan State, I think I agree with you on this one. They're just on the outside.
Yeah.
A few more years of sustained success in the Sweet 16, Elite 8. Now we're really getting there. UCLA. Because this one's really hard.
This one's interesting.
This one's really hard because of championships within the program,
legacy,
immediate recent success.
Yeah.
But go back before McCronin, trash for a long time.
They had that 1 year with Lonzo, with Alford. That was like the last okay team. And I don't remember they had a deep run, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that's a tough one. I think for me personally, I maybe need one or two more years under Cronin to see. I mean, what the Final Four run, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
I think I don't remember what they did last year in March, but a few more years of top 25, of Sweet 16s, of Elite 8s, and we'll get there. So I'm just on the outside with UCLA. Now another tough one. This one is more of a, depending on your definition, Indiana.
I would not consider them a blue blood.
I agree. At least, okay, I said a tough one, but For me, it's pretty easy, no, but I see the reasoning.
I see.
You
Oh
know,
yeah,
you see the reasoning, but I would leave them out. But those are kind of the ones that I wanted to talk about. My personal blue blood list, I would go UNC, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Villanova, and Gonzaga. I would say that there are currently 6 blue bloods in college basketball.
yeah. I like those. I think I'd agree. I might UCLA. So when I'm thinking of blue blood, I do think of recency, but I also think of legacy. And UCLA was so dominant for so long. I think I put them in blue blood territory just due to the legacy and the kind of the revival of the recent success of the Bruins. So I think I'm throwing them in addition to your picks.
Yeah, I mean, and then of course we have people like UConn who also have 2 championships within the past decade. Um, a lot of great players went through Storrs, Connecticut. Just the definition of blue blood is an interesting one.
Yeah.
So it is one that we said is ever changing, but I think we kind of agree. Those maybe 10 or so teams are the ones to be
Hmm.
considered. 6, 7, however many you want to
Yeah.
include, but kind of wanted to have that conversation, assess the state of the nation before heading into the Sweet 16 games. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Congratulations, you have made it to the end. A lot going on, of course, a lot to talk about in the college basketball world. We didn't even talk about the WBC that is going on at the moment. The championship game is on the TV. Maybe we'll get into that next week. Only time will tell. So you have to tune in next week to episode 88. But you can follow the show on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at crunchtime_pod. You can follow Sam at
Yeah, on Twitter you can follow me at SamGodsey29 and Instagram at Sam_Godsey21.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at TDislin22. The clock has run out on this episode, but we'll see you in the next one on Crunch Time.